Hey guys, Chris from Substereo here. Now today I want to try something a little bit different, maybe a little bit nerdy also. In a few days, we're going to be releasing the audio on Spotify and Apple Music and Deezer and all of that for the third part of the Renaissance series. Part 3, Whiskey and Wine. Now the Renaissance series is a 5-part story that we're telling in video form, in stop motion and animation. And we're doing everything ourselves, building the puppets ourselves. And it's basically one long story. And the first 2 parts are already available on YouTube. So if you want to watch the first 2, all you have to do is go to YouTube and type in Substereo and you'll find them there. Now, we like to release the audio first, since it does take about 600 hours of work approximately to make one of those videos. So there has to be a couple of months in between. It's just, that's how long it takes. Now, a few people have been asking how we go about recording and orchestrating some of the songs that we have written. And I figured, hey, instead of explaining it individually here and there, why not make a video and just basically show you how we went about it. We record everything ourselves. We record in our practice rooms, in our living rooms. The videos are also made in our living room, so everything's homemade basically. The only thing we don't do is we don't master. But then again, I don't think anyone who does mix their own stuff should also do their mastering. It's a different story. But let's jump into the project. So here we have the Whiskey and Wine project. Now we like to track everything in Pro Tools. This is why you're looking at Pro Tools now. But we usually mix everything in Cubase. So these tracks right here are not the mixed versions per se, but they're pretty darn close. There's a lot of frequency issues and stuff in this recording. But either way, I figured we'd look at the chorus and we could basically run through the vocal parts, and also I'll show you the guitar parts since they have a very similar approach. Now our approach in recording in general, in writing, is very similar to the approach one would have in orchestrating a string ensemble for classical music. So the idea is to get multiple instruments to sound like fewer instruments. Getting, in our case, we have, I think some parts have 12 guitars, and it sounds like maybe 2 or 3 guitars. And the same goes for vocals. So this one is especially challenging because not only that, but we also wanted to get this one to sound big, large. This is probably the biggest sounding track we have on the Renaissance series. And for that reason, there's a lot of reverb, like really heavy reverb and delays. And that's a dangerous prospect because when you have that much delay and that much reverb, things get muddy. And it takes a lot of work to mix it, as Robin, our guitarist, will attest to. But here are some examples. So let me start by basically showing you the chorus in its finished form. Notice all the delays and reverbs at the end when I press stop. 'Cause you and I, we surrender to the night. Oh, when you and I. There you have the delays. So yeah. So as I said, it's important to have a main role always, like the main focus, because that's going to make it sound as if there's one person basically standing in front of the band and presenting it. The same thing with the guitars. You always have a focus on the one instrument that you want to accentuate, and then that instrument can then get supported by the other instruments and make it sound as if that one instrument is also doing the other things. So the main vocal right here, let me just mute some delay because it's kind of strong here. So this is basically just the main vocal part with a very heavy reverb. 'Cause you and I, we surrender. Yeah, and there's a bit of plosives in there. It could have been better, but it doesn't really matter in the main mix when everything gets on there. And with the delay, this is what it sounds like. 'Cause you and I, which is a very, very long delay. And the delay kind of jumps in, so it picks up where the next phrase kind of drops off, and it kind of works within itself as a kind of harmony, although not really. Yeah, so this in by itself is extremely, extremely large, and you have to be really careful when doing something like this. So therefore, the next voice right here, that's this one. It's more of a slapback delay, and the slapback delay fills out the gaps in the main vocal. And as you could tell in the very beginning, I did a reverse of the vocal just to kind of like brush it in, so everything kind of comes in. Let me see if it's panned a certain way. Yeah, so everything comes in on the left side. And then when the main vocal kicks in, it's in the middle, right? So everything's kind of coming in the left ear. And then from there, it kind of centers. Both vocals together would sound like this. 'Cause you and I, we surrender. So already it sounds clear. It's strange. We have a slapback delay underneath, which is panned to the left, and then we have a slapback delay there underneath the big, wet, muddy main vocal, and all of a sudden it sounds clearer. Why is that? Well, it's because the delays are filling out the gaps within there, and they're not all in the middle. So it just feels more natural that way. So in this case with the backing vocals, I usually like to approach backing vocals as if they were another string instrument, but sometimes you do have the necessity to drop in a direct harmony to the main vocal. Now, as you can tell, the volume level is really, really low here. Panning-wise, we're looking at popping the right side. Since we already had the slapback on the left side, I'm doing right on here, and then this one is probably, way left, but I can't put it in the same place as this one. So this one right here is further up, so you don't want to plaster things. So basically, allowing for room, I put this one further to the left. But let's listen to this one on the right. This is a basic harmony, pretty straightforward. It's you and I, we surrender to the night. Yeah, so the delay is much less aggressive. You can't keep going crazy with delays. There's a lot of reverb on the other hand, and with the reverb it just widens out and just sounds more like an instrument. Then obviously there's another harmony. You and I, we surrender to the night. And the idea with backing vocals in this is to get as much of a straight kind of sounding vocal line. You don't want to do vibratos and things like that because it's just going to get in the way. So when you put them together, they sound a lot more stringy. Like you and I, we surrender to the night. Like that. That works really nicely together. There's some of the delay from the other one. And then we start getting into, let me listen. This is the, right. So this is what I was talking about. Now we're talking about using vocals as if they were strings. And this is me singing in my falsetto voice. I'll show you. It's pretty straight notes. Right. And the corresponding falsetto is basically the same note, but this time I'm going to be stretching it. So it jumps out and creates a little micro melody within the main tone. So it's the same one as you hear here. And together they sound like this. And of course, you always want to counter, if you're doing falsettos like that, I like to counter it with a low note. Okay. And together they sound, alone it sounds kind of funny, but together it sounds like this, just the string kind of vocals. micro melody. And together with the harmonies, you'll hear how they work together as basically one instrument. You and I, we surrender to the night. Oh, you and I. Yeah, and I'll just put the main vocals on now. The two vocals here, they're basically one vocal. They're just complementing each other with the delays. So I can add those, and then you can listen to the vocals by themselves. 'Cause you and I, we surrender to the night. Oh, and you and I, we've been wasting all our time. Oh, and you and I, we surrender to the pleasures of a crime. So, as you can hear, when the music comes in, and when you listen to the vocals by themselves, it sounds like I don't know, a choir or something. It has this fullness to it. But when the music comes in, basically what you're listening to is the main vocal. There is very little in like harmonies and stuff like that. It sounds like one vocal with a bunch of delays on there, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. But it fills it out with all the other vocals. Now, the same approach is basically the guitars. Now, the guitars are a lot more complicated. With the guitars, you have different ways of presenting them. You have arpeggios, distortions, and all of these different options. If you let's listen to track 2. Yeah, we're going to start here. Track 2 is an arpeggio, if I remember correctly. Little string buzz. Yeah, so a basic arpeggio with a little bit of delay. And if I remember correctly, I think it's track 7 is also an arpeggio, but alone it sounds like this. And it doesn't change the chords, it just stays on basically one chord and allows track 2 to change the chords. But since it's lower, it creates a harmony and sounds like one guitar doing arpeggio. That's basically the arpeggio guitar. So that's 2 guitars that are trying to sound like one guitar. We have a main guitar here. Which carries the main melodic part of the guitar. Now, this guitar is actually complemented by, let's see, we have other instruments. I think it's a vibraphone here. So the vibraphone on its own sounds kind of funny, like this. It's kind of like a silly electronic kind of vibraphone that I played, but together with the guitar, they complement each other. Where am I at? Track 1 there, and now it's trying to sound like one guitar. I think there's another guitar somewhere that plays the same melody, but let's see how these two sound. Yeah, so the vibraphone all of a sudden sounds less cheesy because it just sounds like part of guitar. You really have to listen for it if you want to hear the vibraphone. So we had 1, 5, and vibraphone, and those 3 would then carry the main melody. Listen to how beautiful that sounds. It just sounds like a guitar. You can hardly hear the vibraphone, and it resonates. It has its own timbre, its own feel to it. So it sounds like a guitar, but it doesn't sound like a normal guitar. There's something more to it, and that's the vibraphone that's kind of cheating and making it sound amazing. Now, on top of that, we have guitar, basically strumming with a heavy flanger chorus kind of sound. And it's very quiet, and it's panned, and it just kind of fills everything out a bit. And there is some other strumming somewhere, but there we go. And this one is basically just a little bit of reverb, clean. And together, you have the flange strum with this one, and it creates, I'm not even sure it's the same chords, but let's listen. See how they're actually playing two different chords, but it sounds like one guitar. And now the main strumming guitar doesn't sound as flangy or anything. It's just basically complementing the main strumming guitar. And this is basically just complementing the arpeggio. And this is where it gets dangerous, because if you're complementing arpeggios, you really have to pack it in. In this case, it's a little bit distorted, and the reason it's distorted is because it can hide in between the main distorted guitars, which Robin is playing. I'll show you in a second. Let me show you the other one, 7 here. Oh, well, we did 7 already. 8. Yeah. So here we have like more of a distorted kind of or overdriven strumming together with 6. This is kind of the role I would say, I don't know, like a horn section would have, like da-dump, da-dun-dun. It's more like a rhythmic kind of. So we have the flowing arpeggios, and then we have the strumming, which kind of fills everything out, and then we needed something kind of rhythmic, and that's basically that's the part that's delivering the rhythmic part. Which actually gets complemented quite well with the bass line also. And it's creating its own chord progression within the main chord progression of the strumming. 10, distortion. It's a really ugly distortion. It's I want it to be dirty and just horrible, because it's going to be hiding within Robin's main distortion. Yeah. So now we have Robin's distortion guitar with my horrible distortion. Robin has some other guitar parts, but they're in different parts of the songs also. So this is basically what he's playing. And the distortion parts then with the strumming would sound like this. And you'd say, well, okay, that sounds like a pad almost, like it fills out the whole song. So that was my idea as well. I was like, well, that sounds like a pad. So what do? Well, let's put a pad. Use an organ to complement those chords. And with that, I put some synth on there. Also, the synth alone is like this. So the organ and the synth. Which now is going to complement the distortion, Robin's distortion and my distortion. Wait, these are the wrong tracks. There we go. And my distortion. And this is dangerous, and it's really problematic in the 200 hertz range approximately. But it works because you have the strumming to complement it. Okay, so that's basically the guitars. That's 8 guitars, vibraphone to complement the melodic guitar, and then we have the organ and the synth to complement the distortion guitars, basically making it sound like one instrument. And all together, I'm going to include the bass guitar just because it also plays a role in supplementing those guitars. Will sound like this. Great. And together with the vocals and the drums and everything. 'Cause you and I, we surrender to the night. Oh, and you and I, we've been wasting all our time. Oh, and you and I, we surrender to the pleasures of a crime, of whiskey and wine. Great. So that's basically it. Now you're going to ask yourself, well, how the hell are we going to pull that off live? Well, easy, because the whole point is to make it sound like 2 or 3 guitars, just really, really full. And you can get away with a lot of delay and reverbs and distortions and this and that on your guitars. And we're basically just 2 guitars. When we play live, it's Robin and me. And if you want to see what that sounds like, there's also a live video of this song where we're playing this live on YouTube, so you can go there and listen to it. And it's basically mimicking what we've done here. So we'd never do anything that we wouldn't be able to reproduce live. It just sounds fuller. That's the only basic difference that we do whenever we do recordings like this. So we always have to keep that in mind. We're a 4-piece band. We have to be able to deliver this live. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. It was long, it was nerdy, but this is kind of an explanation as to how we go about orchestrating. It reflects our orchestration methods for pretty much everything we do. Sometimes we're more straightforward and just a couple of guitars and just raw play things. We also do that, but I think it's a matter of experimenting and trying different things and seeing what works for the song, not for the band. So the song determines what kind of approach you're going to use, and some are simpler than others. This is one of the more complicated ones, but yeah, the song Adelaide Part 2 is even more complicated than this. So let's see if you can spot that. Anyway, thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify, and hope you enjoy it. In a few days, you'll have the finished track available to you on all streaming services. Thanks for tuning in.